This is a Flipping Junkie podcast, episode 31. Welcome to the Flipping Junkie podcast. My name is Danny Johnson, former software developer turned house flipper, flipping hundreds of houses. Each week, we bring you interviews, strategies, stories, and motivation to help you get started flipping houses and on your way to becoming your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Flipping Junkie podcast. Today I've got a good friend of mine in San Antonio, Mike Arch. He's business partners with Eric Sangerhausen, who was on episode 27 of the podcast. If you want to go back and listen to that after this, you can go to flippingjunkie.com/27, flippingjunkie.com/27. And Mike has been flipping houses for a long time. He's been a real estate investor that's flipped hundreds of houses, and he currently focuses on creating and selling real estate notes. And we'll get some more info from him about how he got his start and exactly what he does. And then today, we're going to be covering how to find the right attorney, title company, closer, realtor, and basically anybody else that you should have on your house flipping team that you might not generally have on your payroll. So that's what we're going to talk about today. It's going to be a great episode full of great tips and information about how to find these people, then what to expect from them, and some of the tips of things that great people on your team will be willing to do that you might not have known is a common thing for title companies or attorneys or realtors to do for real estate investors. So lots of great info in this one. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I know there's a lot of them out there to listen to, so I really appreciate you checking out Flipping Junkie podcast. Be sure to check out our real estate investor websites at leadpropeller.com. That's leadpropeller.com. And then we have our CRM system at reimobile.com that you can check out. A great way to keep track of your leads and set up follow-up reminders that integrate with your Google Calendar and everything like that. So be sure to check out reimobile.com and leadpropeller.com. Enjoy the show. All right. Hey, Mike. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Danny, thanks for having me. How you been?
I've been great. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Staying after it.
Yeah, always are. So for everybody, the audience out there that doesn't know you, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and how you got your start in real estate investing and sort of the path that you've taken and where you're at now?
Sure, I'll give you the quick version. It's kind of a long story, but I've always had a passion for real estate and have always been interested in real estate. And I was actually transitioning, about 15 years ago out of another business. I owned a property and casualty insurance agency in San Antonio, and I was burnt out of insurance and really looking to start doing something else. So I went kind of the traditional route, got my real estate license, found a really good office in San Antonio, RE/MAX. It was a RE/MAX office, and kind of learned the basics of traditional real estate. But I quickly, within probably the first 12 months, I found myself focusing on trying to find deals to flip. That was where my heart was at. So anyway, I went down that road for quite some time, probably had a good 10-year run of being a very successful flipper, literally have flipped hundreds of homes. Kind of just stayed in my own little world and worked mostly out of my house. And just, had a successful business. I've got a couple of kids, so it gave me the flexibility I want, the lifestyle I wanted. And then then somewhere along the way there, I guess it's been 6 or 7 years now, I met my current partner, Eric Sangerhausen, and Eric and I started flipping together, and then we kind of tiptoed into the seller finance, owner financing market, and that's really, I kind of fell in love with that, and that's kind of where my focus has been the last 6 or 7 years. So currently, we have my company's called Alamo Home Source, and we create and sell real estate notes is the bottom line. And we focus mostly here in San Antonio. We have done some business down in South Texas, Corpus Christi, Harlingen area, but for the most part, the vast majority of our business is here in the San Antonio area. So we love what we do. We really enjoy the whole process. We've kind of fallen in love with the whole seller finance model, and it's really been a good thing. So that's where my focus is currently.
Great. And so with Alamo Home Source, you guys, it's sort of like a full service company where you're selling house owner finance, you do a great job of fixing them up, then have a buyer in there that's buying it with the owner financing, and then you sell those notes to investors. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We're licensed real estate brokers. We're also licensed mortgage loan originators. So yeah, so what we do is, we'd love to hold all of these notes ourselves. We always use the example of, we're digging all these wonderful oil wells and we're giving everyone else all the oil. And of course, the oil is the endless streams of income with good interest rates. So we wish we could hold all of the streams of income or these real estate notes ourselves. But the reality is, it's a very capital intensive model, and you have to have private investors. At least we do have to have private investors to continue to keep the machine rolling, so to speak, by purchasing these real estate notes. And that's really, I think, been the key. Is it's producing, for us, the success has been truly producing good real estate notes, and that could be probably for a whole other subject, but producing a good real estate note, if you produce a good stream of income, we've been able and fortunate enough to find private investors, Danny, like the typical private investor who's 60, 65, 70, trying to live off their nest egg. And, what are their choices these days? I mean, going into the stock market, a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. And then obviously banks aren't paying anything. So, these real estate notes we present it as kind of an alternative investment, an alternative to the stock market, or an alternative to a CD. So there's obviously some risk there, but we found that if we produce quality real estate notes, then the investors will step up and purchase those notes. That's been our experience.
Yeah, no, I think it's great because it's sort of like investing in turnkey rental properties, except for that you're not having to deal with tenants and broken toilets and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Great. So today we've decided to talk about building up a team for house flipping and for real estate investing, and those people that we typically work with as real estate investors that generally aren't on the payroll but do a lot for us, and we do a lot of business together. And who would you like to start with? Who on your team? Do you want to start with an attorney, title company, realtor?
Let's start with realtors. Let's start with realtors, because being a licensed realtor, I'm probably extra sensitive to how poor so many realtors are, I hate to say, and how great some of them are. But I think if we could start with realtors, that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, let's do it. So what kind of qualities do you look for in a good realtor, real estate agent?
I think and this kind of is going to apply, a lot of these principles or thought processes or philosophies are going to apply to everybody we talk about today, Danny. But, in a nutshell, someone that is, number one, accessible, number two, available, number three, full-time, on these realtors. And probably the most important quality that I've learned after doing this 10 or 15 years and working with realtors is someone that truly has your best interest in mind and is willing to have a sense of urgency when you're especially on the buy side. Let's focus for my thought process on the buy side. As an investor, hot deals don't last long. So you've got to have a realtor that is willing and capable of moving quickly. Now, Danny, let me back up. Danny, most realtors, as you know, can set you up as an investor with like an automated search, where every time there's a new listing that comes out in a certain price point, for example, or a certain zip code, for example, that it'll automatically send you an email. So every realtor can do that.
And so it's not putting them out too much to ask them to set that up for you, right? I mean, it's a pretty quick thing for them to do.
Yes, very easy to set them up, and I would assume any MLS system has that capability. I know it does in San Antonio, and I've talked to other investors across the country, and that is a very common practice for the realtor to set them up on an automated search. So, but here's where the rubber meets the road is when it comes down to one of those properties you want to make an offer on. You see some potential to make a nice profit. So that's where the realtor has to step up and help get the deal done, so to speak. And that really, if I can talk you through, Danny, kind of the way we do it. I think that will help your listeners kind of get a handle on what would be expected from a typical realtor. Would that be all right?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay. So for us, I mean, when we have a deal that, in fact, let me just tell you a story, Danny. I had one this weekend, literally this weekend. What's today? Tuesday. So we had one, this was actually Sunday afternoon. I almost never work Sunday afternoons, but like a girl at a roller skating party, I dropped them off, and I had a couple hours to go ahead and kill, and I had a list of properties I hadn't seen. So anyway, I went out and I found a property that I really, really liked. It was in my target area. It was priced right. And that's the thing I want to impress on so many new investors, Danny, is, real estate's an imperfect business, which is really where the deals come from. There's no perfect pricing. There's no, it's just an imperfect price thing. Sometimes things are priced too high. Some things are priced too low. So you have to know your market and go after it. But this particular property, Danny, I came up on the market, and it was in the area I loved. It was priced right. I wasn't going to negotiate at all. I was happy with the price it was at, and so I called the realtor. Now, this is a strategy that I use, and this does and doesn't work depending on if you have a realtor presenting offers to you. But I want to circle back to this because I think there are times, Danny, where even if you have a realtor that represents you, obviously they expect to get paid a commission, and that's the correct way things should work. However, we talked about this last time you and I had lunch. We talked about other realtors that you meet that actually buy and sell homes in the areas that you like to buy in. You may have your own realtor that works for you to present offers, but if you build relationships with some of these other realtors, they may call you direct before a listing even hits the market. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
right.
So just let them know that, hey, I like to buy homes in this area. A lot of times these realtors will go to take a listing, and there's just maybe too much work involved there. So quite frankly, I found realtors that really don't want their name, so to speak, on the sign in front of a clunker house. So they might just call you and say, hey, Danny, come on over if you want to buy this house, before it even hits the market. So anyway, not to cut the other realtor out or anything. My point was, though, that at times with the strategy that we like to use, that I like to use being a licensed realtor, is saying, hey, here's my offer. It's clean. In this particular case, Danny, I actually bumped the price $500. I've lost out on a lot of deals recently. This thing was priced very good. When I called the guy, now keep in mind, this has been on the market one day, okay? This was literally day one. The guy had already had a couple offers. So now I basically said, all right, so the strategy I used was, here's my offer. I'm going to bump it $500, just good faith. I want no inspection period, no option period, and I want to close in 1 week to 10 days. So now, I don't want to give poor advice. Obviously, I've bought and sold hundreds of homes, so I don't want to tell a brand-new investor, hey, don't get an option period, don't get an inspection. That probably wouldn't be good advice. But when you've done it hundreds and hundreds of times in the same areas, in the same city, you pretty much know what you're getting and what the potential wild cards are.
Right, absolutely.
Wouldn't you agree on that?
No, absolutely. And I think, to touch on another part of that, you had said before, and I love, the phrase is a sense of urgency. And you were talking about, this is a Sunday, right, that you were out, and it was just listed that day, and already there were a couple offers. And, that's just the way it goes in this business. If you want great deals, you've got to have a sense of urgency, and whoever's in the loop or in the process or chain of getting your offer to the seller, they all have to have the sense of urgency to make sure that there's not a delay anywhere.
That's exactly right. And Danny, like what you said, if I were coaching a new investor, I would be saying, listen, you get a realtor, you have them present the offer, okay, and make the offer as clean as you possibly can. And also immediately follow that email up with an offer. I can't tell you how many times, because I'm a seller, Danny, as well. I sell a lot of properties. And I can't tell you the times I get, and I have properties that I sell, and I'll get 2, 3, 4 offers over a weekend, let's say. Well, guess what? The one I'm paying most attention to is the realtor that called me and said, hey, Mike, I just wanted to reassure you, we've got the cash. Did you get the proof of funds? This guy's ready to go, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets greased. So many realtors just send an email, and the contract, is sometimes completed correctly. Sometimes it's kind of iffy. Sometimes there's a lot of blanks missing. There's another thing, just the realtor's attention to detail. It needs to be a very clean contract. Danny, one other strategy that I've used quite successfully, and like I said, I don't want to give poor advice, but, when you find something and you've done it over and over again and you're comfortable with it, I like putting a big earnest money down. The typical earnest money on a typical house in the price point that I would buy in, which would be maybe under that 100,000 range, might be $1,000. Okay, $500 to $1,000. Well, my earnest money is normally $5,000, and I make sure I point that out to the listing agent. Say, listen, not only is it a clean offer. In this case, it's full price plus $500. I mean, I'm laying my cards on the table. I want the property. It's hard to find deals, so when I find one I really want, I want it. So, I lay my cards on the table and say, by the way, the earnest money I put up is $5,000. The other thing that I type in, even though the contract, if I don't put an option period, technically that option period, if I do not put an option period or an inspection period in the contract, technically that earnest money is the seller's if I fail to perform. But I actually restate that verbiage in the special provisions of the contract, Danny. I just want them to know I want to pound the point home that, hey, I'm serious. Here's $5,000 non-refundable earnest money. I put a statement that says earnest money is non-refundable if buyer, me, fails to perform. In other words, I want them to know if they sign off on my deal, there's not going to be any red tape, and it's going to be, a smooth closing. And what I normally tell them is I say, listen, I'm never going to go back to the property. I've seen the property. I've bought and sold dozens and dozens of properties in this area. I'm happy with it just the way it is. You don't have to haul up any trash. You don't have to do anything. Now, this goes against traditional real estate buying where it's tit for tat and, this realtor wants me to do this and no, we're not going to do that. If you find a deal, I go back to it being an imperfect market. I mean, this thing was priced probably about $10,000 low, Danny. So I wasn't going to sit and try to shave, $1,000 off the asking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah, no, I like what you were doing there because everything that you did is basically hammering the point home that this is a done deal for the seller. Because a lot of times sellers are there wondering, and sort of nervous about, is this going to go through? And the listing agent is wondering, is this going to go through? Is this guy going to be able to perform? And everything you were saying is just hammering the point home. Like, you're going to feel good about this one. Like, this is the guy to sell to because you know it's going to be done.
Exactly. And then I go back. I didn't want to, I'm different than many investors because I have a real estate license. In this case, Danny, one other tool that I pull out of my toolbox is I say, by the way, Mr. Realtor, no commission on my end. In other words, as you know, most realtors, there's usually a 6% commission involved and 3% to the buyer's agent, 3% to the selling agent. In this case, I said, by the way, even though I was entitled to the commission because I'm a licensed realtor, the commission was offered via the MLS. It was listed that the buyer's agent would get a 3% commission. In this case, I said, hey, and no commission for me. And that, I think, oftentimes seals the deal, too, because the realtor that's selling the home, instead of only getting 3%, they're getting 6%. Now, that doesn't necessarily apply to a lot of investors that are working with a realtor, and that's fine. All those other points usually will get the job done, the quick close, the strong earnest money, and no option period if you're comfortable, or no inspection period if you're comfortable with what you're seeing there. But I think back to that other point, Danny, that we talked about. Everyone, I am very loyal, very honest, very ethical with people, and if I had a realtor before, I was like, I'm very honest, I need them, and very ethical. However, if another realtor calls me and says, hey, I've got a listing here, it's clean, like the example we gave before, I don't see anything wrong with that. You get to know that they all use standard contracts. It's a cash deal. There's really not a whole lot to it. It's $50,000, $80,000, whatever the number is. So my point is, I wouldn't feel an obligation necessarily to bring my realtor in and give up 3% commission to them if someone else, they knew nothing about an off-market deal. Let's put it that way. So that was the value I think that new investors can do is when they have a certain area they really like, they might want to drive the streets, Danny, and kind of see whose signs are in the yard, who's selling those properties in that area that they like. And I would actually pick up the phone and go meet those people and just pop into their office and say, hey, I just want to introduce myself. I'm a cash buyer. I work in this area a lot. If you ever have a property that comes on the market, that before maybe you list it, if you want to run it by me, and you'd be surprised how many of them do that. I've got several realtors that call me, and the funny thing for you and I, guys like us that invest, is we've seen it all in terms of ugly properties and smelly properties and everything else. And a lot of realtors I've learned, it's kind of funny. Just really don't want their name associated with a property like that. And I get it. So a lot of times, if they have a property, they would want their pretty nice sign on it. They wouldn't want to be associated with that house that smells like 20 cats live in it. Well, they may just call someone like Danny or someone like Mike and say, hey, if you want to come and purchase this property before I even put it on the market. So anyway, just another idea. I think when you talk about realtors, you got your own realtor, but I also think it's wise to go ahead and at least meet some of the realtors that are working in your area. Let's put it that way.
No, I think that's great because that's a very underutilized tactic in finding deals, and I think to your point of driving the areas where you want to be flipping the houses and looking for that sign with that name that you see over and over again, because those people are plugged into that area. And even the ones that you see, you're not seeing all of the ones that they've listed, and they're probably getting calls for some of these properties that they might not be all that interested in listing. But if they have somebody like you that they know they can quickly sell and get a commission on, they probably will pick those up and call you up. So
exactly,
exactly. Investment in time. You're making me think that I need to go drive around a little bit, but get out there and talk to more of these people myself.
yeah, absolutely.
But, okay, so how, as far as listing agents and listing properties and buying them from them, but what about buyer's agents? Do you have any qualities you look for or ways to find great agents to help locate properties for you?
I think that, the biggest thing, or one big thing, I touched on this earlier, but just make sure they're full-time in the business. This is their profession, number one. I mean, I've seen investors trying to work with part-time realtors, and that, like I said, back to the sense of urgency, that just doesn't work. I think talking to other investors, I think maybe talking to title companies might be a good idea. But, it's the great thing about realtors is that there's so many out there, and they work 100% on commission, generally speaking. So, I guess the message I would want to send is, you might have to go through a few to find the right one that you really connect with and click with. But at the end of the day, it's someone that's responsive, someone that understands the sense of urgency. And, I got to the point, Danny, when I was first doing this, I mean, I was so set to control freak on how I wanted my offer presented, kind of like we talked about with the earnestment. I would draft an email and I would forward it to the realtor and say, this is the email I want you to send to the other realtor. Now, and obviously he's the professional, he was the licensed person, they'd have to give it their blessing. My point was, I can't underestimate, I can't overemphasize, I should say, the importance of just getting through your realtor's head that when you find a deal you want to move on, you want to move. And if that means 8 o'clock at night, if that means Sunday afternoon, I mean, they have to be willing to do that. So that's probably the biggest thing. And a lot of realtors aren't, quite frankly, and I get it. I have a family, and I get it. But you want one that when you say jump, they say let's go.
Yeah, and it's important to say that because you might talk to 10 or 15 and they all seem like they could really care less. And it's important to know that there are some out there that are just saying, let's go, let's do this, and they're, they are the go-getter type and they do exist. And it's always important to know that they do exist and you will find them if you look long enough. And I think your point of driving around and looking for who's listing what, and, names start to pop up over and over again when they are that type of realtor because they're doing a lot of business and they're doing a lot to get their name out there.
Yeah, Danny, one lesson I learned early on that I wanted to share, too, is, early on, before I was licensed, I started tiptoeing into the investment world. I ran my realtor ragged. I mean, I was like, let's go here. And I'd go over there, and it was next to an ugly commercial building. I'd go over to look at the house, and I was running that realtor all over town. So one thing I did learn is, back to these automated searches, when you're getting these automated emails, you see something that might be interesting, hop in your car, run over there and look at it just so you get a feel for what's next to you. So before you waste your realtor's time, because it works both ways. I mean, realtors can also fire clients just like clients can fire realtors. You know what I mean? So it has to be a win-win relationship. But when you show a realtor that you're being respectful of their time and you call them up and say, hey, listen, I got your automated search. I went by 3 of them. There was only one that was really interesting to me. Can you set up the showing? How soon can you do it? I think they really respect that. So that would be a little piece of advice too. Is don't run your realtor ragged if you don't think you really potentially are interested in the property. It's hard to tell sometimes when you're looking online. You look at the pictures, it all looks good. Then you show up, like I said, and you got the neighbor from hell.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe do some research up front sometimes on some of these to know, so that you aren't just wasting their time. And I know what you're talking about, because I remember being in that sort of position where I see something, and before giving it a whole lot of thought, I was just like, I got to go on this. And without giving it enough thought, because, when you'd show up at the property and say, oh, there's something I forgot here, this is a waste of time. And it was the waste of time for the realtor because I didn't think through everything before, I just knee-jerk reaction and called them up to have them meet over there. So
that's good.
All right, great. Now, let me see. What do you want to cover next? So we've still got.
Well, why don't we talk about title companies? That kind of goes together. The title company. I think it's a similar philosophy as the realtor. Finding the right one, someone you connect with, someone who's responsive, and Danny, I think I'm sure you've been through this. We've talked about this in the past, but I mean, there's so many times, especially in the investor world or in the investment world, when you're buying homes, there's a reason why the home is a potential deal for an investor, and oftentimes it's a neglected home, an abandoned home, an estate situation, an old unwanted rental. Who knows what the dynamic is? But oftentimes, when you find someone, let's say you potentially make a deal on a home, and then there's title issues. So that's where the title companies really need to step up. And I had a story recently, Danny. I had a situation where I really, really wanted this house. And to make a long story short, there were literally 11 different heirs to this guy that passed away, and 5 different states that they had to deal with these affidavits of heirship and all of that. And and we're talking on a very low price deal. And I think most title companies would just say, "Yeah, sorry, can't help you." I mean, but these people literally worked on this for a couple of months and got it done. So until you experience some of those situations, you might not appreciate, what title companies have to go through to get clear title to be able to issue a title policy. But that's
yeah, there can be a lot of work, and scheduling all of those people. You find out who all has ownership based on heirship, and then that all has to be scheduled and planned. Like you said, that one, I think you said different states and everything. So all of those people, and one example I've had too in the past, a long time ago, there was a house, and the woman that owned the house was an elderly woman, and I actually got it under contract for $8,000. And for people that aren't from a place that has those kind of price points, like it's kind of hard to believe that you can buy it. But really, I don't know. Maybe it was even $12,000 that I was buying it for. It was so long ago. But a little piece of junk house that really was only worth that much to me. And before, no one was living there for a long time. And before we closed on it, though, unfortunately, the seller passed away. And so it went from buying from her to having to buy from all the heirs. And it turned out, I think there were maybe 18 people,
oh my God,
believe it or not, that ended up being a part of this thing, and split up $8,000 or $12,000 between that many people. And they're not even willing to take the time to talk to somebody about getting it closed. And unfortunately, that one didn't close. But those kind of situations do come up where there's a lot of work to find all these people, schedule them, and they all have to accept the sale of the house to sign and everything. So,
yeah. And I think a couple other things regarding title insurance, as your listeners and new investors may or may not know, is that title insurance, at least we can speak for Texas, the rates are regulated by the state. So you go to title company A, B, C, or D, and they're giving you the exact same rate for the title insurance. But here's where the difference comes in terms of money out of your pocket as an investor is, they call it the escrow fee or the closing fee or the title fee, not title insurance fee, but just basically a closing fee is what I call it. And that is basically, for performing their service of handling the closing and dispersing all the funds. They charge the buyer a set fee and they charge the seller a set fee. And that ranges probably on the low side, $150, and on the high side that I've seen somewhere around $450. Well, if you're doing a fair amount of volume like I do, what our company does, I mean, that difference of saving $300 to $600 per transaction, because often we're paying both sides of the closing cost to get a deal done. That's another whole conversation. But anyway, so my point is, that's one thing that I found, Danny, is having them do reasonable. Like I had a title company, and their rates were somewhere around $300 to close, which is kind of middle of the road. I think it's leaning a little high, to be honest with you. But let's say $300 to close the buyer and $300 to close the seller. Well, you know, we were doing a lot of cash transactions. I mean, a cash transaction is like a dream for a title company. I mean, generally speaking, they don't have all the loan documents to mess with. They're not, you know, wiring money back and forth or emailing documents back and forth to the title company. It's very clean. It's easy. It's more efficient for them. And we negotiated with the title company. We just said, listen, we love you guys. You're wonderful. You're a great company. We're very loyal. On our cash transactions, would you consider doing them for $150 a side? And they said yes. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, you don't think anything's negotiable, but it was just like houses. I mean, and they were happy to do it. They were saying, yeah, if you give us all of your business, you know, then we'll be happy to give you a deal on the cash transaction. So I thought that was valuable. I think the other thing that I've learned over the years on different title companies, I've learned, Danny, that some title companies, you know, are a little more accommodating when it comes to maybe doing a mobile or a remote closing. I think that's valuable. I didn't even realize that. I was years into the business when I had an elderly lady and trying to figure out how we were going to get her to closing, and the title company goes, well, we'll just send out a mobile closer, and we'll go out there and we'll show up at her house and do the notary right there. I'm going, you can do that, and I was thrilled. So we take advantage of that a lot. So that's another thing as you're trying to figure out which title company you want to use. I would ask about their ability to accommodate, out-of-state situations, FedExing back and forth, sending a remote closer or a mobile notary out to get a deal done. And for what it's worth, I'll give a plug to Chicago Title. We've had great luck with Chicago Title here in San Antonio. We work at the work with the Stone Oak location there, and they've just been great. Another thing is believe it or not, in some cities it's an issue is the Spanish speaking, the bilingual aspect too. I've actually worked with title companies and had really good relationships going with them, and they really couldn't accommodate our Spanish-speaking buyers, so we had to switch because of that. So that's another thing, just making sure that they're set up for that. And just like the realtors, Danny, as you know, it takes an act of Congress to get a deal done. A lot of times, all the paperwork and the realtors and the closings and the inspections and the appraisals and all of the stuff. And there's oftentimes title companies too. Their willingness to stay after hours. I mean, I can't tell you how many times the one we use, Chicago Title's been there at 6 o'clock waiting for the customer because he's got caught in traffic and that sort of thing. So that's really above and beyond in the world of title insurance. So I just think it's the same thing. Like you when you originally asked me to be on your show, Danny, and we were talking about this subject. I mean, don't underestimate the value of all of these people. The title company, the realtors, then the attorneys that we're going to talk about next, because you need them, and having the right ones really helps make the transactions go smoothly.
Yeah, everything you mentioned there, our closer has done for us for years, and I just actually wrote a note, like gift for Lauren, because she is awesome, and we definitely need to acknowledge that more. And I email and tell her a lot, but all those things that they do, I mean, it's incredible. The times that I've gotten emails, even at, I think sometimes 4 or 5 in the morning, it's working to get everything done on time all the time and working very hard. And those people do exist and are out there and are great to find. I wanted to also talk about the fact that you talked about those remote closings and, for sellers, the ease of the transaction for people selling a house to you, where you could have the title company out there and close them where it's convenient for them. Because sometimes you're dealing with sellers that have problems with getting around and things like that. And so it's nice to have that. Great point. It's also good to utilize that for yourself, and I'm sure you probably do it too, where they come out and close you so that you don't have to go to the title company to do the closings.
Oh, absolutely. We do that all the time on ours. Yeah, they send the mobile closer out. We get it all right at my office on our schedule. So that works out beautifully. So
great. Great. And is there a way, you have any tips for finding people for title companies and things like that? Maybe talking with other investors or.
Yeah, I think talking to other investors, I think, other experienced realtors. But yeah, and I hate to say it, but it's kind of like realtors. I mean, there's a lot of them out there. So if you don't feel like you're getting the outstanding service, move on to someone else. I hate to say it, that's really the way it works. But by the same token, the minute you find someone that you're really comfortable with, like you just mentioned, I mean, treat them like kings and queens and really build those relationships. I think that's the key message, I think, Danny, to new investors is these are real relationships. I consistently, and I know you do too, cultivate these key relationships. I mean, because there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes at title companies and with realtors to help get deals done. And, when they're sitting there going, is this really worth my escrow fee, or is this really worth my commission? And they think about Danny and how wonderful Danny is, they'll step up and get it done. But I think that is really the message, is kind of have a system in place to cultivate those relationships on a regular basis, whether it be sending them a Christmas gift or taking them out to lunch, a few times a year. But I think that's really, really, really important. That would be the best advice. But, the good news is there's plenty of them out there, just like realtors. There's plenty of title companies. You got to find one that you click with and that is able to do all the things we just talked about. And that kind of leads us naturally into the other subject of attorneys. Would that be okay to talk about that next?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. With attorneys, attorneys, I just wanted to share my experience with I'm a very loyal person. I find an attorney that I like, and I'm happy with, and for me, same qualities. I mean, I want to know that the guy is available. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating for me, especially back to the whole sense of urgency on all of this stuff when it comes to the investment side of things, having to make quick decisions, having to move quickly. Having an attorney that will answer your phone call is very near the top of my list, along with him being competent, of course. But just being able to pick up the phone and get that attorney on the phone to ask a question. The story I always like to tell, and this might hopefully bring some value to your investors, is a lot of attorneys, as we know, they charge for their time. And early on, I had this particular attorney that I used was referred to me by someone way back when I was first getting started in the real estate business, and we connected, and he's been great. Now, early on, I was getting a bill every time I talked to the guy, and call him up and ask a question about a foreclosure. What happens if someone files bankruptcy? How does this work? Especially because a lot of this stuff applies to the seller financing model that I'm currently doing. And I was getting these little bills, and I understand you're going to get a bill, and that's how they make it bill for their time. But the one little thing that I learned, I kind of negotiated with the guy, and I said, listen, I'm getting tired of getting nickel and dime on these little bills. I call you up and ask you a little question. And we started talking about it. He said, well, that's how I get paid for my time. And I said, I understand that. So to make a long story short, Danny, what we started doing is, when we started having that attorney, now he was a real estate attorney, prepare all of the real estate documents for all of my closings. Now, maybe that's obvious to some people, but the way I used to operate before I knew better is I go to the title company, and we would have a transaction there, and they would contact their own attorney, whoever they're comfortable using. And I just said to them, hey, listen, can I have the attorney that I know, can he prepare the documents, for my transaction? They said, of course. So maybe that was obvious to some people. It wasn't obvious to me in the beginning. So basically, we're talking about, Danny, the warranty deed. You've got the real estate note, and then you've got the deed of trust, or a mortgage, as it's called in some states. So those basic legal documents. Many title companies, like I said, have their own go-to attorney because they have someone they trust. They're quick. They know what the fees are, and it's kind of an automatic system. Well, I kind of worked out a deal with my attorney. I said, listen, what if I bring you in, so to speak, and you prepare all those standard documents that are part of every transaction, and then you stop nickel and diming me every time I call you.
That's a great tip.
That's a great idea. So anyway, that worked out. So I think you got to keep that. Now, that's the part about attorneys in general, in my experience. experience, whether it be real estate, insurance, just attorneys in general. And I get it; they bill for their time, but you have to draw the line sometimes. Some of them, over the years, I found kind of push the envelope on basic little questions.
Yeah, and you have to be careful with, because I've had this happen several times, where you go in and you start talking, and before you know it, you've chit-chatted for 15 to 30 minutes. Well, most of the time, the clock is running. Like, you're paying for that time. So realize that and get to the point, I think, is the smart thing all the time. Never assume that you don't start paying until you talk business, because most of the time it's going to, you're being charged for all that time. So cut the chit-chat and get down to business usually pretty quick.
Yeah, and not to contradict what we just talked about. I mean, you do want someone competent. I mean, I think a typical attorney, Danny, we were talking about that the other day. We're probably looking at probably $300 an hour or something. I mean, let's face it, when you need a good attorney, you need a good attorney. But,
right.
When you're a new investor and you're trying to learn the nuts and bolts of foreclosures and bankruptcies and warranty deeds and, someone passes away and what's an affidavit of heirship and all this basic fill in the blanks knowledge as a new investor, I mean, that's the part where I think, come on, and that's where, and I think communicating that, sometimes it's just a matter of letting them know your expectations. I mean, if they truly see you, they want business just like anybody else. And I think good advice to new investors would be to maybe, accumulate, maybe make a list of all of the questions that they might have just on, different subjects, and maybe, getting a referral from, another investor, another realtor, maybe a title company. In fact, title companies would be a great one for that, because they already know who's preparing the documents. And you go over there and you say, hey, introduce yourself. Hey, I'm a new investor, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm looking for an attorney to be kind of part of my team, so to speak. I need to have a go-to attorney, and would you be willing to spend a few minutes with me on some of these basic subjects, just kind of, and it works both ways. If they're not willing to do that, I think you got the wrong person, because I think any attorney, like any investor, any realtor, I think you got to invest a little bit of time to build the relationship. So that is an approach I actually took early on with my attorney. I came up with some things, and we sat down and I took him to lunch or whatever, and just kind of, and kind of set the ground rules, so to speak. But I think the same principles apply, Danny, is back to, building a relationship. I honestly can say that I have a very strong relationship with many realtors, the key title company and the title company, and then also the and then the attorney. Hey, it made me think about for a minute. Sorry to go back to the title company, but one thing about title companies is that you'll learn as a new investor is, I said, for example, Chicago Title, but usually there's a specific escrow officer. Chicago Title does dozens of escrow officers, right? So, I mean, there's a specific escrow officer. You don't want to just turn your contract into Chicago Title and let them hand it to wherever it goes. Usually there's one specific person, they call them an escrow officer or the closer, that actually handles the transaction. That's what you were referring to as well, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's important to call around or ask, and then ask who is working with closing a lot of investors. Somebody that's already working with investors, so that they're not confused by the way we handle transactions. Exactly.
So anyway, back to the attorneys. I think I didn't want to give poor advice on any of that. I mean, when you need a good attorney, pay up and get a good attorney. Make sure they're competent. But one thing you'll learn as an investor is you actually need an attorney, I think, more than you might realize. I know we do. I seem to be talking to my attorney once or twice a week about something. What's been your experience on that, Danny?
Yeah, not so much. I mean, we have points where we're trying to figure something out, and then we talk. But as far as a lot of times it's really just communicating to get the documents.
Yeah, I think a lot of that probably has to do with our seller finance business model. I mean, it's a little more complicated in the sense that you're not only the guy selling the house like you are on a traditional flip, but then you're also the bank and you're also the collection agency. You know what I mean? So there's a few more hats there on the seller finance thing. It's probably what's happening with my particular model. But anyway.
Yeah, and I think overall for this whole conversation has been a lot of great things for people to understand. sort of who to look for, what's possible, what to expect from the people that you put on your team that you work with throughout all of the, your house flipping business. And it's so important to take the time to find those right people. And then if you do find that you have the wrong person, you've got to be quick to cut ties and find somebody to replace them with. Because if you are finding any part of your business causing you stress or causing you frustration, you just have to change it, because there's too many things that we've got to do in this business to have any part of the machine, grinding and making a bunch of noise and causing a bunch of problems. So just being smart about taking the time to find, putting the time and the effort to invest in finding the right people is paramount.
Yeah, that is a great point. In fact, I knew an investor. I touched on this earlier about working with someone part-time in the real estate business, and he had I don't know if it was a brother-in-law or something who was a teacher and a realtor, which is great for him, but not for the investors. So, back to when the investors needed to move quickly, the guy's teaching 8th grade science,
Yeah.
So, so the bottom line is, like you said, and you got to be smart, and it is a process, it is a team, and when you find those good people, really build the relationships with them, and they appreciate it as well.
Well,
That's the great thing about real estate, Danny. One thing I love about real estate, if you think about it, everyone's motivated to get the deal done. You got the title company gets paid, a commission on the title policy. Realtors get paid a commission. So that's one dynamic I really love. So you just got to make sure it's like a tug of war that everyone's pulling as hard as you are. That's the
right.
key. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think what came out of this episode for me too, as well, is the fact that just knowing what type of person and what to expect and what they should be doing helps a lot, because I think a lot of times people will talk to an agent or a title company, to a closer, escrow officer, and feel like asking them to do something is probably asking for too much, and you need to understand that it's not. So if you have somebody making you feel like what you're asking for is too much, and you're talking to the wrong person.
Great point.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. Well, thank you very much for being on the show and covering all of this, and all of your advice has been great. And is there, you and Eric are actually releasing a book very soon, right? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, thanks for letting us plug the book a little bit. Yeah, this has been a couple-year project, and thank you for mentioning that, Danny. I wasn't going to mention it unless you brought it up, but I appreciate you bringing it up. And the people ask us all the time how we do what we do, because, like I said earlier, we do seller financing, but we do it in a very professional way. We're licensed, and we create good notes at the bottom line. That's the bottom line. So we kind of documented our process, and we have an abundance mentality. And a couple of years ago, we put on our goal list, we ought to write a book. And boy, I tell what you wish for, it might have to come through. So it's been a labor of love. It's been a couple-year project. It's literally just about out. I would say it'll be on Amazon probably in the next couple of weeks. We're almost there. We had just submitted a final edit, but we put a little website up. It was stopflipping.com. The actual title of the book is Stop Flipping, Stop Renting, Seller Finance Your Way to Financial Freedom. But the website to buy the book or check out the book was stopflipping.com. And but for letting us plug the book, yeah, I think it's actually a very good resource. Even if you are into flipping or building rental portfolios, it kind of gives you a different perspective. And I think that's the beautiful thing about investing, is real estate investing, is you could have literally 10 people in the room, and every one of the people are in real estate, and none of them are doing the exact same model. So that's the beauty of it. So you have to kind of find what your niche is. We really gravitated to this. There's a real feel-good side to what we do in terms of providing the financing for a family that might not get it, improving their neighborhoods one house at a time. And like you touched on earlier, the biggest one for us was dealing with an owner mentality versus a renter mentality. Eric and I both had pretty good-sized rental portfolios, but when we kind of started dealing on the other side of the fence, so to speak, with owners versus renters, that really pushed us over the edge to move forward with that model. But yeah, I think it's a great book. There's some real practical how-tos in there. We really didn't hold anything back. Laid out our model on paper, and and also kind of intertwine a lot of the philosophies that kind of drove us and helped us become successful. So I think it's a good mix of nuts and bolts and business philosophy.
Great, great. So is there a way on the stopflipping.com website for people to get notified when it's released?
I think there is, Danny. I think they can almost pre-order it. I'm sure there's a way to contact there. And but like I said, we're literally talking in the next couple of weeks. So, I'll keep you posted. Maybe you can make another, official announcement to all your listeners, maybe on one of your upcoming podcasts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'll let you know for sure when it is. But yeah. But hey, I sure do appreciate you inviting me on. I think you're doing some great things. And I don't know how often you toot your own horn, but you're a real pro in this business, and you've been doing this for a very long time and are one of the best at the game.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. Thank you for being on the show. And for people that would like to find out about the book, and you should be one of those people because I'm looking forward to it, you can subscribe to Flipping Junkie. If you go to flippingjunkie.com, you can subscribe there, and I'll definitely send out an email as soon as I find out that the book has been released, and I will mention it also on the podcast that comes up within a couple weeks to let people know that that's available. And then the link for stopflipping.com and Mike and Eric's thenotefactory.com I'll put on the show notes page, which you can easily find at flippingjunkie.com/31. That's the show notes for this episode. And, well, thanks again, Mike. I really do appreciate it, and talk to you soon.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon. I'd love to be on again. I really love what you're doing, and love to spread the good word about everything we know that might be able to help new investors. So thanks again for calling me today and having me on.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Bye.
Well, that was another great episode in this series for learning how to flip houses. We started with the foundation and motivational episodes. If you go to iTunes, you can see those previous ones and check out the series and start from the beginning and listen through if you're starting from one of the middle episodes. But we're working on building teams and talking about all the different people we interact with as real estate investors. In this last several episodes, we'll be moving on into the nuts and bolts of analyzing deals and finding deals and getting leads and things like that. If you want to get a jump start on that, of course, you can get a real estate investor website, professionally done with all of my years of knowledge and getting leads, thousands of leads over the years from my real estate investor website myself. And we've put all that knowledge into Lead Propeller websites. It's websites for real estate investors. You can check that out at leadpropeller.com. Hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week.